can you see the camera, boy? Rio, look there. What's this? What's this? Hey guys, so I'm back today and I've got little Rio sitting with me for a little bit. I'll see how long this lasts because yeah, it never lasts very long. But as a lot of you guys know, I shared my birth story actually a few months ago now, because Rio is 4.5 months and I think he was about 2 months when I shared my birth story. And in that I mentioned to you guys that I struggled a lot after the birth. We encountered so many different troubles and problems, and it was really intense. And often when I look back on it, I think it was more intense than the birth itself actually. And just through chatting with a lot of you guys on Instagram, I know that it's actually a lot of what we went through is fairly common. And just if this video can encourage some moms who are going through the 4th trimester or who are pregnant and are going to be experiencing it soon, I think there's just so much that you just as a first-time mom can literally just not plan for and not anticipate. So yeah, let's dive in. So I've shared with you guys up to my birth story. If you want to check it out, I will link it here now. But I'm just going to jump in at the hospital and how I struggled there, and then kind of speak a lot about the breastfeeding journey in the first 6 weeks and how we struggled. So in the hospital, obviously I gave birth in the peak of coronavirus times, and yeah, I don't know exactly like how to put it into words, but the night that Rio was born, or the next morning now, like 2, 3 in the morning, like Cam had to leave, and I think at that moment I panicked, and it was at that moment I think I actually had a little bit of a panic attack, something that I haven't really encountered or experienced before. But I think it was actually just the culmination of what my body had just done, what I had just done mentally and physically, complete lack of sleep, just feeling overwhelmed, a screaming baby that's now in the world and needs to be fed. And yeah, I really battled. The nurses actually had to take Rio for an hour or two just because I was just really like emotional. Rio in the hospital, he fed okay, like he latched perfectly. We did skin to skin when he was born. We were actually quite fortunate in that they were really busy that night, so they had to leave Cam and me and Rio. Like Cam would have actually had to leave sooner if it wasn't for that they were so busy that they couldn't actually like clean me up and stuff like that and wheel me out of recovery. So they just kind of like left me in the labor ward with Rio, and we got to really do a lot of skin to skin feed. He fed really well. But the next day Rio was very sleepy. Like the nurses were saying to me, it's common, but it doesn't happen with every baby. So he like just didn't want to wake up to feed. So obviously we were waking him up to feed, but it was really hard. We would have to take off all his clothes and wipe him down with a wet wipe, and it was just like, I mean, I didn't know that babies were sleepy when they were born. So if you're a new or expecting mom, yeah, Rio just didn't want to wake up. He woke up, but he wanted to sleep a lot of the time, and that started off the feeding with a bit of difficulty, because in the first 12 weeks establishing your milk supply is really important. And you know, you want to try and feed as often as you can, at least 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour window period. And I was like stressing and just worrying that he wasn't going to like get enough feeding in and all of that. And yeah, the feeding was okay. There was like the colostrum, you know. And then on the 3rd day, well, technically the 3rd day, but Rio was born so late. So he wasn't even 48 hours old. I think Rio was 36 hours old when we were discharged. And I didn't want to leave the hospital because I was like, I don't know how to breastfeed. I was like calling the nurses for every single time. I'd read so much about breastfeeding, and I think that actually helps. And I'd read quite a few videos on different latching and how like you hold this hand, like your right hand to your right boob, and you use your left hand to support the baby. And like there's actually quite a lot that I had learned. But you know, with Rio being so sleepy and having to wake him up and wipe him down with a cloth to get him to wake, and yeah, that I didn't really expect. And you don't expect that your nipples like literally feel like they're being grated. Like the nipple trauma is also quite really intense and painful. So yeah, when we were discharged, I was really emotional. I didn't want to go home. I like actually was crying. I didn't want to leave. I was so happy to be a mom. I don't know why I actually was crying. I don't know why I was so emotional. But anyway, then I was discharged and I cried the entire way home possible. I think it was just like, the nurse was like, oh, it's just baby blues, it's just your milk coming in. So that was technically day 3, but my milk actually didn't properly come in until the Sunday, which was technically day 5, like day 4.5. And so it was quite a long time. When Rio was born, he was almost 4.2, and he was 4.16. And when he was discharged, he was 3.9. So they said to me, oh, it's going so well, you know, he hasn't even lost 10% of his birth weight, you know how they say. And so at that point, I still thought, okay, things are going okay. Personally, I was really struggling by the Sunday. So after we'd been discharged for 2 days, I was just really tired. I was battling to sleep, like not just like newborn exhaustion, like I myself was battling to turn off. I couldn't sleep. I actually developed like a sleep aversion or phobia or fear. Like every time I closed my eyes, I just started panicking. It was so weird. Like luckily it only lasted about a week where I really struggled to sleep, but it was a very, very exhausting week. So on the Sunday we had done antenatal class, and there was a nurse / lactation consultant who had partnered with the class, and she had made herself available, you know, for if you want to see her for appointments after the birth of your baby. So I'd messaged her on the Sunday, and we went and we chatted to her, and she had said like, oh, you don't look well, you look very pale. I thought, okay, that's normal. Hey, like, you know, you've just given birth to a baby, it's a coronavirus, there's so much going on. But she said, no, like, you look actually a bit unwell, you should go to a doctor to get it checked out. And yeah, the doctor, who was well-meaning, obviously didn't know my full history and everything as much as, say, my gynae did. Just said, you know, I think you're really battling with anxiety, and I think you've got yeah, just a lot of stuff that's been going on, and I can see you quite emotional and stuff like that. I was very, very tearful. I know it's normal, it's completely normal after the baby's born. Cam, do you want to maybe take Rio? So yeah, he basically had said like, yeah, you got anxiety and, like, you know, physical exhaustion, you need to get rest, you need to, you know, just take it easy. We had weighed Rio on the Sunday, he still wasn't gaining any weight, so this is like day 5. So the nurse that I was seeing just said, okay, maybe let's weigh him again, I'll see you again on Wednesday. So yeah, basically between Sunday and Wednesday, like, things didn't improve for myself personally at all, and eventually we phoned the gynae on Tuesday, and he said, no, you need to come in, I would like to see you. Went to see him on the Wednesday, and I had actually developed a infection in my womb, which is very, very rare, especially for natural birth actually. So yeah, that was quite a big surprise, because it, and also a relief, because it explained so much of the symptoms that I've been going through, and it was a huge relief. And I think also when you develop a good relationship with your gynae, there's just like a trust element, and when he like just told me what was wrong, I felt so emotional, like, because he said, I can see, like, the second I walked in, he was like, you're not well. Like, if I look at photos of myself from a week after birth, I looked beyond normal tired. I was pale. It was so difficult for me, because like the first week that Rio was born, I didn't even trust myself to walk with him when I carry him when I was walking, because I felt so weak, and I just thought it was normal. So like, anyway, just the relief of like, okay, it's not normal what you're experiencing, was very good. And I had to go on really, really strong antibiotics. My uterus hadn't contracted enough at all, like where it should be after a week. It was still sitting really high, so like as soon as you deliver, your uterus is supposed to start contracting, and mine didn't. Right. Anyway, so after the gynae, we went straight away to get Rio weighed on the Wednesday. Still not gaining weight. So now you start like worrying, you know, your nipples are now like destroyed. It's a week in. You're looking at the latch. Every time I'm feeding, the lactation consultant says, no, his latch is great, he's latching well. But she said then on the Wednesday, I think he has a tongue tie. but like I'm not 100% sure, because he was also hard to get his mouth open. So he's like, it looks like a tongue tie and maybe a lip tie. But let's start expressing after each feed, start getting his weight up. Let's just focus on immediately getting his weight up over the next couple of days. When the Friday, so now Rio's 9 days old, went back, he still wasn't gaining weight, day 9. So now I start properly with the expressing. Every feed, now we're on a strict routine. Every 3 hours Rio has to feed. So like let's say it's 9 o'clock in the morning, Rio feeds. That takes almost 40 minutes at this point. Burping him, changing him, now it's 10 o'clock. Now I express for 30 minutes, 10:30. Cam takes Rio, starts getting him down, syringe feeds him what I feed him. So now it's 11 o'clock. Then we rest for an hour, and at 12 o'clock, wake up Rio, start again. So that was it. We would only literally have an hour off in every 3 hours to rest. Through the night, we had to wake him up all the time. So then I go on the Friday back to the gynae. The good news is that my uterus has started contracting. The infection has gone down rapidly. But I'm like sweating and like really flushed, and I just still didn't look well. So now the gynae's like, okay, maybe you have coronavirus because you've been in the ward. There's a lot of COVID going around. It was in the peak of the Western Cape. I was just like, God, I actually don't know if I can take more. Like, I've now gone through 9 days of basically not sleeping. I'm pumping after every feed. I'm syringe feeding him. Do you know how long it takes to syringe feed a 9-day-old baby? Like, you literally syringing mils at a time, 5 mils, 10 mils. It's exhausting. Like, now I get told about coronavirus. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I literally cannot do this anymore. I was at my end. So now I have to self-isolate after already I'm not seeing people, and keep the pumping routine, keep everything going, and now wait my coronavirus results. So anyway, then on the Monday we went to go away Rio. I'll never forget, he gained 80 grams, and we were just like so relieved, like wow, this can happen, you know, like the optimism just starts to set in. Then the lactation consultant reassessed him properly now for the lip tie, and she said no, he definitely has a lip tie. So we made the appointment for the Wednesday at the dentist who specializes in the lip ties and tongue ties. Such a nice man. We took Rio to him on the Wednesday when he was 2 weeks old. He said 100% this baby has a lip tie and a tongue tie. They laser it now, so I mean obviously your mom heart doesn't want your baby to be hurt. They're like 2 weeks old. And anyway, between that Wednesday, I also found out that my tests were negative. I didn't have coronavirus. I actually don't know what was wrong with me. I think it was just pure exhaustion. I like red blotches on my face. I was so pale. I looked terrible. I think it was just like at my wit's end. And I think what's hard is that by the time you're at the point of giving birth, you're just so excited, and then like to now go from giving birth where you're up here to like 2 weeks of like absolute stress, no sleeping, your baby's not gaining weight, and like other moms are like breastfeeding such a breeze, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? I was like watching so many videos on issues, latching, how to get babies to gain weight. I was on like fenugreek, nursing tea, lactation bars. Like just like literally it was traumatizing. There's no word other than traumatizing to explain what it was like. Anyway, so after the lip tie, the dentist, you have to feed them in the chair after they do the procedure. I'll never forget how Rio fared in the dentist chair. It was like he was in a desert and he had found water. Like there was like milk coming down his chin, and like he fell asleep feeding, and it was like he was so content, and it was so easy, and it wasn't painful. And like, because you know when they lip tie, they can't get the flange right, the fish, the lip like this. It was like he could just go like this, and it was just like, it was so perfect. And that's why if anyone just says to you, if you're a mom, like, oh, just feed through the lip tie, tongue tie, getting it revised was the best thing we did for our breastfeeding journey. We went to get Rio weighed a week later. He gained 280 grams in a week. It was like amazing. Anyway, the dentist had told us you can see like a spike in weight gain and then a drop, because they actually, first it's like, you've also, your supply is quite a lot, so they can just drink quite easy, but they still have to relearn how to latch properly, and there's a lot of like challenges after that just to re-teach them how to latch, because they almost like have to learn how to drink again. So the weight gain did like, yeah, so it dropped again, so it was 280 grams, and we're like, this is awesome, yay, like this is amazing. Then I go and get Rio weighed at the disc game. I'm sure you can hear Cam in the background of Rio. Anyway, so once it, like, I think it was a Saturday, we went to go get Rio weighed at the disc game, and we are like, this is so exciting, like, and I like stood in a queue. I don't know why I did this, because if there is any moms out there, the best thing to do is to continually weigh your baby on the same scale, because scales have such huge differentiating factors. Anyway, I went to go get Rio weighed, and the nurse, who obviously was well-meaning but didn't know what I'd gone through, and she said, wow, like your baby's so tiny, you know. And I was like, yeah, he's 2.5 weeks or so, almost 3 weeks now. And she was like, how much does your baby weigh? So I said, about 4 kilograms, because now he was 4.2 when he was born. We went down to 3.7, and he was like busy climbing back up. She said, there is no way this baby weighs 4 kilograms. And I just like, I just felt this anxiety welling up in me, and I just knew, I knew that the weight was going to be bad on the scale, because just by her comment, it just like, it just gave me this feeling. And it was like, yeah, it was like basically like he had lost weight from the last weigh, and at that point I didn't realize that by weighing him on a different scale there was such a huge weight variation. So that was, I was a completely new parent, so I didn't really realize that aspect. So basically I like said to Cam, we have to leave now, like this game, like we're not even buying what we need, we're leaving Canal Walk, like we're going. Like I just was like blinking back tears. And anyway, the next day we went to go weigh him at the nurse, and he had actually gained weight. And like that 24 hours I had been in an absolute panic, and like I was like, we're just going backwards, like he's losing weight, and like it's just so stressful, and I couldn't sleep again, and I was just like, just felt this anxiety welling up again in me. And then we went to go weigh him, and he'd been gaining weight, and the nurse said to me, like, you know, if you weigh him on different scales, you are going to get like a huge variation in weight reading. There's different calibrations with scales, and when you like counting the grams, you know, like 200 grams is a lot in like in a baby's weight, like that difference. Okay, so then there's another little thing to add, is that when I went onto the antibiotics postpartum, 9 months, like 7 days postpartum, after a few days, antibiotics obviously kill the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, and I developed thrush. It's also quite common for people who develop thrush, and I got thrush twice in my pregnancy. Rio got thrush. He got it in his mouth and his bum. He gave it to me in my nipples. The pain of that was the worst thing I've ever experienced, and I said to Cam maybe 4 or 5 times, this is worse than my natural birth delivery. It was so painful. The pain shoots to the side of your breasts or boobs, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what you call them when you're talking about breastfeeding, I don't know. And it's so deep and so painful, like it's so sensitive, so sensitive. Like even putting on a bra was painful, and like it was so bad. We had these little sores in his mouth, and like we were trying everything, and it's like bitter winter. The sun was not shining for like 2 weeks. Everyone's like, oh, just put your baby in the sun and put your nipples in the sun. I'm like, there is no sun. The sun is not shining in Cape Town right now. And because of that, now obviously when you've got weight gain issues and milk supply issues, you want to put your baby on your boob as much as possible, as many times a day as you can. And now I'm like, it's so freaking sore, I can't do it. I literally cried through every single feed. It was so painful, and I dreaded feeding him. When I knew it was time to feed him, I just like look at the clock and I just like get tears in my eyes, and I was like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Like, having thrush was another hurdle that almost made me want to stop. And like, it was actually overcoming breastfeeding with thrush was almost worse, and because of that I was now only feeding Rio on the mark, because I was like, I can't feed him extra, it's actually too painful, I need to give my nipples a break. Just I would like literally lie in the sun, I'd put creams on, and then these creams you got to put it on, then before you feed him the next time you got to wash it off, and you got to dry it off, you got to make sure there's no cream residue left on the baby. So I mean on your nipples, so it doesn't get to the baby's mouth, because it's not good for the baby to drink it. So I like feed him, put this cream on my nipples, just like pray that by the time I feed him in 2 hours time, 3 hours time, it's better. Because I mean ideally you just want to like lie in bed and just latch your baby all the time if they've got weight gain problems. Anyway, like that took over like 2-3 weeks to get rid of that thrush. I like cut out all sugar from my diet, I was like putting on all these creams. It was, the thrush was the worst thing, and I just said to Cam, like, I can't take anymore, I can't do this anymore. Like, I think that's why, like, when I look back on those 6 weeks, it was just so traumatic, because I just felt like, is there another hurdle? How can I do another hurdle? I can't do it. I just couldn't do it. I'd gotten to a point where I just felt so overwhelmed. I felt like I was drowning. And then a few weeks later I went to a breastfeeding clinic. I know I've just been to so many different people, I don't know why. I think I was just like so desperate just for things to get better, because we had that 280 gram gain after the lip tie got reversed. Then after that it like kind of dipped again to like 110, 120, which was not like terrible, like 130, but it wasn't like he was thriving, you know. Like other babies were gaining like 250 a week, and if you can hear noise, it's just Rio. And like Rio was like just scraping, and because like he'd really had a shaky start, like 110, 120, like his growth curve was just like limping along, you know. It wasn't like it was going fantastic, and I think that just really caused so much anxiety and stress. And then I went to the breastfeeding clinic, and then she was like, you know, like people just say stuff and they don't realize the impact it has on you, because she was like, you know, your baby's 4.5 weeks now, and if you don't get your milk supply right by 6 weeks, you're not gonna have any milk, and like you need to go home and you need to resolve yourself now that you're just gonna pump and pump and pump and pump, and you're gonna take medication. And she just like really like wanted to scare me, not knowing that I'd like just come out of like 4 weeks of like absolute trauma. And it like scared me, because I was like, what if I ruin my milk supply now? Like Rio can't remove milk, he's not removing the milk enough, so now my body, the supply and demand is going to go down. And I was like so scared. And she weighed him again, and the weight was like, and she wrote in the like book like slow weight gaining baby and whatever. But then when we went waiting back at the original nurse, because we keep going back to her like through all of this, we've got like the appointment dates and stuff, I just gone to the breastfeeding clinic in the hope that maybe I could learn something that I don't know. But now Rio's about 5 weeks, and I said to Cam, I remember we drove there, it was raining, and my mom was going to come up to visit for the first time to meet Rio, and I just said to Cam, like, I can't do this anymore. I can't, like, I feel like Rio's going to be big so quickly, and I'm going to miss out on all of these little newborn things, because my life is feeding him. Like, it is my life. Like, I'm feeding him with a syringe. I'm worrying about his weight when he's not eating. I'm thinking about it. We're going to the nurse every few days. I just had this moment where Rio's already 5 weeks old. Like it just went, and I actually like mourned that I didn't get to just have this amazing few weeks. I think I just like had this moment where I realized like time is passing, and like I don't want to like miss out on these really important weeks of Rio's life. Like, he's never going to be a newborn again, and I just felt so emotional just thinking that I'd really lost so much, and that like the first 6 weeks of his life was just like absolutely fraught with anxiety and stress about his weight and the lack of weight gain. And I had tried everything. I was on fenugreek, jungle juice, nursing tea, lactation cookies, expressing oats, you name it, like you name it, I tried it. And I felt just so down, and just so like, you know, this is it, this is the first 6 weeks of his life, it's gone, I'm never gonna get it back. And like I felt the most heart sore when I heard of other moms who were just doing so well, and I just felt like, why am I struggling so much? Why is it so difficult? And you know, like, there was just something in me that really didn't want to give up on breastfeeding. And you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with stopping breastfeeding, and I think that's the one thing I've learned throughout this journey, is that like everyone's breastfeeding journey is different. But I just didn't want my journey to end in that way, because it just felt like, no, I'm not ready. This is something I want, and this is something that I'm fighting for, you know. And eventually when we went to the pediatrician at the 6-week checkup, and his weight gain was pretty average, and she said, okay, you know what, there's absolutely no reason why you can't combination feed. She did, like, you know, some people are just so intense on breastfeeding that they are so scared that if they introduce formula into the baby's diet that their breastfeeding journey is over. And she said, I'm telling you now, it's not going to be over, but you know, you are absolutely like exhausting yourself pumping like to top up each feed. And she said, you know what, you breastfeed for 15 minutes every side. After that, you offer him 50 ml of formula or breast milk if you have, but just take that pressure off yourself. But always offer him your breastfeeding first, so that he gets his satisfaction from you, and he knows that you are the source for the hunger, or for the hunger to be satisfied. But then you top him up and you just get it just to help his weight. And I think there was something so freeing about that. I like came home and I just had this thing of like, okay, like, okay, Cam, can you take him? Like it's not the end of the world if we start introducing formula. It's not going to be the end of the breastfeeding journey. And you know what? It is tough. It is tough to top up, because when you do, babies, they do get used to bottles. And this is absolutely nothing against introducing formula feeding, because actually introducing formula, you know, brought back my sanity and brought back my ability to enjoy my baby, and I will forever think that was the right decision. But it's like almost something you have to do very prepared. You have to know how to feed, you have to get the right bottles, like a slow teat. It has to be very similar to breastfeeding. This is if you want to continue with breastfeeding. You need to like breastfeed first, then offer the top ups. You know, it's like a bit of an art, but it is possible. And I think that there are some people who are so strict with breastfeeding that they feel like the second you introduce formula, you are like kissing your breastfeeding journey goodbye. And here I'm sitting with Rio being almost 5 months, and there was a time where I said to Cam, if I can just make it to 6 weeks, like, God, I just need to make it to 6 weeks. Like, even if I give Rio 6 weeks of breast milk, then and if I stop, you know, I just thought there's absolutely no way that we'll be able to continue breastfeeding at far. Like, now when Rio got to 1 month, I was like, I'm still here. 2 months, I'm still here. Now I'm here at like almost 5 months, and I'm like at the point where it's a lot better. And I'm also at the point where I think I've gotten so much further than I ever thought I'd get, that every month is a blessing, and it's just like so awesome. But yeah, it was just so difficult. And I think the point of what I want to say is, when Rio hit 6 weeks and I started A, topping him up with a bit of formula, and B, when I drove in the rain and I felt sad that I was missing out on Rio's life because of feeding, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to be anxious about it anymore. I think that's when the weight gain started increasing, because I think the anxiety that had gripped me was so strong, and that just the stress of a baby that's not gaining weight, it is so stressful, and you have so much pressure from people telling you what to do, giving you your opinions, and you have no confidence as a mother. You're a brand new mom, you're freaking like a 5-week-old mother, and now everyone is telling you what to do, and you don't know what to do, and you've got to find your feet. And I think when I made that decision, like, I don't want to miss out on Rio's life. I don't want to miss out. Like, feeding is just one part of a baby. There's so much more to me as a person than my weight and what I'm eating. That's just one dimension of me, and Rio's just the same. And getting able to cuddle him and watch him grow and change his nappy and rest with him, like, that's so important in the newborn stage. And if you are going through a weight gain issue, I just want to encourage you and remind you of that. Like, don't let it rob from you and steal from you those precious moments, because that's what it happened to me. And it's almost like I have regrets, because I can look back on that time and I can hardly remember it. I was completely sleep deprived. I was stressed. I was so tearful. I was just like, I was so down. I cried. Everyone said, oh, you just have baby blues, you just cry for 10 days. I think I cried non-stop for 6 weeks. I think it was mixed with hormones and the situation, but I cried all the time. I struggled not to cry. I'd be driving in the car and I just cry about anything and everything. And yeah, I think that, like, you know, really concludes the first 6 weeks and all the troubles. But I get moms messaging me. I know, like, people on Instagram exaggerate about stuff all the time, but the most prevalent thing I get messages from moms is saying that they're really struggling after the baby is born, with the feeding, with the weight gain, with everything. And it is, it's a full-on, it's everything at once. It's your whole life has changed. It's the lack of sleep. And I think someone had said to me, like, you almost have to resolve in your mind that the first month or two is tough, and you just, like, say to yourself, okay, you know what, for me, June and July is going to be tough, but from August it's going to be better. And I think that helped a lot, because it was like I hung on to the thing that it is going to get better. And I get a lot of moms asking me, like, how do I get my milk supply up? How did you manage to keep breastfeeding? And I just think it's like there's so many practical tips to follow, like getting enough rest, drinking enough water, eating a good diet. I take tablets like brewer's yeast, multivitamins, Prolac, fenugreek. You know, all of those things are good, and I think getting a milk supply up is a combination of all the things, but you can never ever replace the supply and demand concept of the more that milk is demanded from the boob, the more the body produces. So if you are battling with milk supply, the best thing to do is to feed your baby more, or pump more, or whatever, or feed and then pump a little bit if you've got the mental capacity. If you're not in the space, like I got to the point where pumping was absolutely destroying me because I was pumping after every feed. But yeah, the most important thing is to feed as often as you can, skin to skin. Always, if you are going to supplement with express milk or formula, always offer the breast first. My pediatrician taught me 15 minutes each side in the beginning. Obviously now Rios is so big, I don't follow that anymore, but when he was really small and we were really struggling, I did 15 minutes every side. I had a timer on my phone, and then after that I'd offer him a few mils top up, either express milk or formula depending on what I had. And now, you know, Rios is so chilled, like his feeding is so much better. Since about 7 weeks he hasn't struggled with weight gain. He gets formula top-ups every now and then, but we kind of go according to the day, and he definitely doesn't need to be topped up for every feed. I think some days he gets 1 bottle, and by 1 bottle I'm not even saying a full bottle. He gets like 60 mils. Like, I mean, that's a snack for him now. We really just offer him a bottle if we're going out, or if we, like, it's just like a little snack so that he can almost like, because he's used to bottles and he drinks express milk or formula, he's happy with a bottle. But I will never let a bottle replace a feed, because I'm cautious of protecting my milk supply because of the journey that we've walked. So yeah, it's more like if he's really niggly, and or Cam's looking after him for me for an hour and I don't have time to breastfeed, but it will never replace a meal. That's just something that we've kind of followed just to protect the milk supply. But yeah, that's just a little bit of our journey that we've walked going for the first 6 to 7 weeks, and it was really, really tough. And I never ever in a million years would have thought that it would be that difficult. And there was so many times I wanted to give up. And yeah, I just really want to encourage moms out there that it doesn't actually matter how your baby is fed. And that's the one revelation that I had when Rio was 5 or 6 weeks, where I realized, like, I need to make the decision that if I do keep breastfeeding, then I'm going to rather enjoy being with Rio. And I think that's what's important, that if feeding is like absolutely destroying who you are and your ability to connect with your baby, then, you know, what does it matter what your baby's actually fed? The love that you're giving them, the cuddles, the attention, you know, that's more important. But I also want to encourage moms who do want to breastfeed and be there for them, that it's okay if you want to breastfeed too. And if you are like me and you're like, no, I don't want to give up, that's also totally fine. Like, I think either journey or either path is totally okay. But I just want to encourage moms who are wanting to give up, like, to not give up because of these hurdles. Like, they are you can overcome them, and I'm always there to help moms who have gone through similar things as me. So Rio is gonna wake up from his nap now, so I'm gonna conclude the video. Luckily Cam's with him now, which is great. Cam's back. But yeah, like it was a tough 6 weeks, and I just really thought like I couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel for a long period of time. And it was definitely a struggle, but we are here and we made it, and Rio's almost 5 months and we're still breastfeeding. So I think that's really my encouragement, is that if that is what you've set your mind to and you really want to do it, like, yeah, to not give up on a bad day, or to not quit in those moments where you just feel like I cannot do this anymore. Like, it does get better. But let me go see how Rio's doing. This video to film has taken me like 3 stop-starts, so that's why, like, when you saw Rio awake versus now him waking up from his sleep, it's taken so long. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and let me go sort out my little baby. Bye.